The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We are going to have a guy on who's going to talk a little bit about AI. We're going to talk a little bit about sales. We're going to talk about his background. So if you are listening on your favorite podcast directory and you can leave us a review, leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like us, so we can keep bringing on the guests that like the one we have today. Let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhaker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, Thomas Ryan of Bigley Sales. I appreciate having you on. I apologize I was late. And so on a Friday afternoon. So it's been a crazy day, and I'm sure for you too. So before we get into this, because I want to talk about your background and a lot about the AI process, whatever, where does Bigley come from?
Bigley. So whenever you're trying to find a name for a website, right, before you name your company, make sure you get a website first.
Good point.
Right? Don't do it in reverse.
I bet people do it in reverse.
Yeah, everyone does it in reverse, and then they go to get their website and it doesn't exist. Right. So I went and I looked for Big Sales, right? And I think they wanted $100,000 for Big Sales at the time. Nice. And I was like, yeah, I'm not paying that. Right. And huge sales and enormous. I'm going, is anyone going to be able to spell enormous? I'm going, can I spell enormous? Right. So I put an LY at the end, and it was, the $10 for the year instead of $100,000. And there we go, something everyone can spell and hopefully remember.
Okay. Well, someday you'll change your name. The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person
that's going to be my middle name.
Manages any enterprise, especially a business. You asked me before, so I want to focus a lot about you and your background and your history and what you did working. I assume you didn't come out of college and start Bigley Sales. So I want to go back to your business experience and sales experience, and then what kind of drove you into AI and,
that is to say, their success
in the sales world.
Failure happens by accident. Yeah, so I guess AI kind of is accidental. Because if you asked me 5 years ago, I wasn't going to do AI. That wasn't my plan.
Listening to the Accidental Entrepreneur.
What I was building was a CRM system. So my background, I grew up in the staffing industry. I was in the staffing industry since I was 14, but my parents were in the staffing industry. So I grew up in that world. I did that. I worked for a family business after I got out of school. Did that for 5 or 6 years, went back to grad school, got my MBA. While I was there, I launched a different staffing firm, and that went from, 20,000 in sales to 12 million in about 18 months.
Okay.
It was an
All
industry,
staffing though?
Yeah, it was all IT specialty staffing.
So you would staff up a department for whatever reason?
We would do a lot of ERP systems. So a lot of folks that did things like SAP or Oracle or PeopleSoft or Workday, and we would go and, so I was working with large companies. We worked with the University of California. I worked with Halliburton. We worked with L3, a lot of hospital systems as well. We started doing a lot of EMR work. So University of Miami, places all over.
So these were people that you would keep on your payroll and you would place it for them. It was like temporary positions because the project would end and then.
That's correct. That's exactly right. So you need an expert to come on for 6 months to do a project. They would come in, they would do the project, and then they would leave.
Got it.
So
going from one job to the next. Got it.
That's exactly how it worked. And then when the project is done, they don't need them anymore. And sometimes we'd roll them from one project to another inside of a company.
Got it. Or move them to another company, right?
Or you move them to another company.
I know that's a lot of how these tech guys live. They go from, one job. And now I guess they don't have to go anywhere, right? They can just do it remotely.
Yeah, back then, the way it worked is they tell them to work 410s. So they'd get on a plane Sunday night.
Yeah.
They would fly to wherever they were going. Most of these guys would live in a place like Dallas or Atlanta or Chicago, where it was a flight hub, typically towards the middle of the country.
Right.
And then they could get anywhere in 3 hours.
Yeah. And that was it. And they would go out and would they come back Thursday night or Friday?
And come back Thursday night.
Yeah. That was life, right?
Yeah. And we'd pay them their $100 or $150 an hour or whatever it was. And,
plus expenses.
Plus the travel expenses. Yep.
Right. And they just stay in a hotel for the week.
Yeah. That's exactly it. The client would pick up the hotel.
Okay. Now, but you didn't have a tech background. You're not a programmer.
I'm not a programmer by trade, no. But I did deal with them forever.
I'm sure. Well, it's not osmosis, right? So it doesn't rub off on you.
No, some it's definitely not osmosis. There's a massive learning curve in learning how to manage a software project.
Right. So how long were you in the staffing business? A long time after college?
I mean, since I was 14.
So until you started Big League Sales, it was all staffing?
Pretty much. I had a couple other businesses that I fooled around with for a little while, but it was while I was doing Bigly as well.
So that was like starting on the side. It was like a side hustle to start.
Yeah, and then it was one of these things where it wasn't what I loved. It wasn't what I was passionate about. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So I was always kind of looking for something else to do while I was doing it because it's not what I wanted to do 50, 60, 70 hours a week every week.
Right.
And I don't think anyone runs a small business, starting off at least, where they're doing it, 10, 20 hours. I think that's a myth.
Yeah, right. Of course not. I mean, it is if you want to fail or you don't want to get off the ground or you want to struggle all your life, you can do that way.
Yeah.
But no way.
I just don't. Maybe if you get lucky with a website or something, but I just think it's a myth. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no way. Were you involved with a lot of the operations of the company, or you were mostly doing sales, placing these guys?
At the old company?
Yeah, the staffing business, right.
I would do some sales. I would go to the conferences. I always did well at the conferences. I'd always try to pick up a person or two at whichever conference that I went to where we could go and do a lot of work with those guys.
Got it.
So I would do some sales there, or I would go meet with some clients, but mostly I had a sales team that I was managing.
Got it.
So we had, about 15 people working doing recruiting, 15 people working doing sales, and it was managing those folks. And, when I was at my previous company, I had gotten pulled into a project to work on the CRM system. Where they said, hey, we want to get some guys from the business to, look at how this whole thing is set up. And I started looking at it from, really an analytical perspective of how the CRM system set up and how it worked. Right. And then after I started, my company, we built our own tools from scratch internally, which I would never recommend doing for a small business, by the way.
Right. Costly and time consuming.
Yeah, and it's never done. Right? Like you're like, oh, it's only going to be 3 months to get this done. But then if you want another feature, there's no one else to call. And if something breaks, you better have that guy coming back. And
you don't have a team working on updates coming out with 2.0 and 3.0.
No. That's exactly it. So, I mean, it's almost always a mistake doing that. If you build something simple that, if you look around, someone's probably built it already. Like these days, if you actually go on the internet and start scouring it for tools, you can probably find something that satisfies your needs that is $50 or $100 a month.
Right. Or you can use a Zap to connect two pieces or, an API or whatever to do it that way. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So but because in those days, the CRM was really like, it was like lead flow. I mean, it was it's deal flow. I mean, that's what it was. It was, how does the client or the prospect come into your system? What do you do with them? How do you treat them? How do you respond to them? How do you keep them in the deal? How do you close them? Those types of things. Isn't that really what the CRM was designed to do?
And there was some really industry-specific things for staffing. So there was a couple of the tools that we built that we used all the time. And then there was, a lot of other things that we built that we thought were going to be important that just weren't important at all.
Like what?
So the one that we used all the time is we had a tool where we could segment resumes, right? So we had about 2 million people, give or take, in our database. And we wanted to be able to go and take keywords and narrow it down to the people that actually be good for a job.
Okay, so you had a huge database and you needed 12 people for this job who specialized in C++ or SQL or I don't know, whatever. I'm just making shit up. But
it would be I need a guy who does SAP materials management, who has aerospace experience.
There you go.
Right, and has worked with this, that, and the other thing, and knows this submodule. They also know warehouse management. They know handheld device consoles that you can use in a warehouse. And they'd say, okay, we need someone with this background. So we'd say, what's the most important piece of this skill that they need? Is it okay, it's the warehouse management. And then we would do a search for, how many times do they have warehouse management on their resume? Because what a lot of guys do is they sprinkle the resume with every word under the sun, but they don't do most of those things. So I would always tell my internal guys, I'd say if someone has it written on their resume once, it means they don't do it.
Right.
It means they've seen it. They've worked next to the guy who does it.
Right. But maybe they're afraid to talk about it too much.
Yeah, maybe they integrate with it, right? But they don't actually do that sort of work. It's like if someone has, someone's a lawyer, and they have family practice on their resume one time, and you say, well, what cases have you done? They say, well,
I helped another attorney once with
once 10 years ago.
And custodian application. That's not family law. Yeah.
That's not the guy you want to hire for your family law, right?
No.
That's, same thing. If you're looking for someone who is setting up corporate or whatever, I'm talking out of my element, right? But
there's a lot of attorneys hold themselves out as like generalists, and you can't do everything.
No. I mean,
you'll
get someone who's going to do a not very great job for you if you're hiring a generalist.
But in those days, were the resumes like in paper? Like people would send them in and then you had to get them in a system?
It was emailed in. So we would get it emailed over, and then we built a resume importer where we would scan the resume and put it in. And then what we would do is a keyword search, and we'd say, how many times does this keyword show up on the resume?
Got it.
And then we could say, okay, we're looking for people who have this on the resume at least 20 times. Because if someone writes their resume well and they're a consultant, they should have it broken down in reverse chronological order by each job, right? So your most recent job would be at the top of your resume. I did this case for a year. I did this job for 6 months. I did this job for 9 months. I did this job for 2 years. I did, right? And then it should have the skills that they used on each job. So they'll have the keywords there easily 15 or 20 times if the resume is set up that way. And the people that we were dealing with that you were flying around the country to do this sort of work were typically very good at what they did. And that they would do a job for us. They'd do a job for SAP America. They'd do another job for us. They'd do a job for Accenture. Right. And that's what their resume looked like.
Whatever the job
the same skill set, right? They're doing, okay, they did this job at L3 Communications, and then they did the job at Boeing, and then they did the job at Northrop Grumman, and then they did the job at Lockheed Martin, and then I mean that's what the resume would read.
Right. And obviously, they're going to put things that they actually did. The last thing you want to do is end up at a job you can't do. So
they would never get past the screen.
right.
You know.
Yeah.
The only time where you'd see that is occasionally we had the guys who were on H-1Bs that would come in. They would have one guy interview. Yeah. This was before they did video interviews. So they would have their best guy interview, and they would send someone else to the job.
Nice.
And they'd say, "Yeah, you know, I don't think they're going to be able to tell the difference." You know.
Right. Yeah. They're both Chinese. They won't know.
That's it. They're both Indian. So
no one's going to know the difference.
No one's going to know the difference. And anyway. So you'd see that every once in a while, but
unless the guy on the screen was 90 pounds and the guy who shows up is.
Well, this was before they did the video interviews. This was before the Zoom days.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So you're just talking to a guy on the phone with a heavy Indian accent.
Right. He can answer all the questions, but he's not the guy who's going out there. He
can answer all the questions, you know. So there's Srinivas do the interview, and Kumar is the one who went to the job, and you know, an Indian guy shows up when he's supposed to show up, and you're like, all right, here he is, and then the guy gets canned after 3 months.
Right.
Usually they'd make it 2 or 3 months before they got canned, but sometimes it'd go a couple of weeks and they'd figure it out.
Yeah. All right. So what was it that you were finding that this system was just not efficient?
Well, the tools that were out there at the time just weren't very good. So all the resume stuff, it didn't work like that. They were trying to look for, here's what every word that you have written. So what you would do is you'd put 10 or 15 different words, but 10 or 15 things wouldn't really be important. What would be important is, okay, I'm looking for a family law attorney. I don't want to hear about the other 15 practice areas that they've looked at, touched upon, they took a course in college on. I want the stuff that they've done for the last 10, 15 years, right? I'm looking for a litigation attorney. I want someone who's done 50 litigation cases.
Yeah, can handle himself in court and stuff. Sure.
Yeah, and has done it a bunch of times before. But the way all these softwares were set up is rather than you'd get an attorney that way or get whatever you were looking for, you're going to get people all over the map that have all these keywords, and they just weren't a good fit. And they would try to do scoring, but it wasn't set up the right way. So we built some software to say, look, what's the primary keyword? And we need it at least X amount of times on the resume. And then here's what are the secondary keywords that we're looking for around that. And, then we could say, okay, we're looking for someone who is, console experience as well. And we put that in there. And now we narrow our database of 2 million people down to 100. And then we could click one button and send an email out to all 100 of those people. And the emails were wildly effective for that, right? So we ended up having the email doing the work of, 5 or 10 people, because now instead of having to pick up the phone and call all these people, you could send one email and we would get back the 10 guys who were qualified and interested. And then we could do the full interview with them to make sure they were a good fit and they were actually going to show up and all that jazz.
Got it.
But all of the benefit of our CRM was the automation, was being able to narrow down a database, being able to segment down data, being able to automate the outreach process. That's where all of the value came from. So I said, boy, I think other small businesses could use some tools like this for the outreach. And that's what I started Bigly for, was a CRM.
For small business, not just the staffing industry.
It was going to be for small business in general. And then what I found is small businesses, most of them really didn't want something like that.
Okay.
Most of them would say, I'd talk to you and you'd say, Mitch, what about this? And he'd say, my benefit is me talking to people and them knowing me. And, if I do outreach, if I automate anything, it's not going to be, good for them. And so what we ended up having was a lot of people coming on board who used it that were a little bigger, right? They would have 10, 20, 50 employees.
Yeah, that's usually where it starts hitting. Yeah.
And what would end up happening is the way the system was set up is all of the emails would be automated and everything would flow back into the CRM automatically. Because one of the big things I saw, because I managed all these salespeople, is no one would ever put any notes in the system. And everyone hated every CRM because it meant a lot of manual data entry that they all had to do for an hour or two every day.
Right.
And now they're spending a big portion of their day doing manual data entry. And they're like, this stinks. I don't want to do it, right? And we'd have to get a little draconian and say, look, if you don't do it and someone else does it, they're going to get credit for that deal.
Right.
So, well, I talked to the guy. And so, well, the way we can tell you talk to the guy is if you put the notes in the CRM.
Right.
And, right, but again, you'd have to, it was almost, you'd have to have the whip out to get the guys to do it, right? No one would want to do it on their own. So we would say, okay, how do we fix this? And the answer I came up with was it should all be automated. So every text, none of the texts ever made it into the system. If the guy got a call on a cell phone, it wouldn't make it into a system. If the guy got a call after hours, it wouldn't make it into the system. And then now you're trying to report on all these things that happen. Well, most of the events that were important took place outside of your CRM.
Yeah.
And you don't even hear about it.
Right. Well, that happens even in small business. It's very hard to document, the people that I meet and everything. They want to meet me, and I don't do that. It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. And now, especially for the owner, you're giving the owner homework to do, and you don't want more busy work. You don't want an extra hour a day of busy work. So the initial idea was to just have all of that automatically stored in one place. Your text would be through the system. Your emails would be through the system. Your phone calls would be through the system. There would be storage of everything there. And then you could report on it. You could see how many calls people made. You could see how many emails they did. You could see, you could just track everything there within that CRM.
Yeah, so I understand small organizations they could probably use that data, but they don't really need it. But if you got 15, 20, 30 people, then you need to track them.
I disagree. The small organizations don't need it. They don't want to deal with the rigmarole of setting it up.
They don't want it. They should use it.
They could use it. They just, until that sales rep walks out the door with 3/4 of their database on his cell phone and they don't have the rest of the guy's contact information.
Right.
Like, they don't realize they need it until they get bitten.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
It's like the lawyer thing, right? You don't realize you needed that contract until you didn't have one.
Yeah,
and
you call me after the fact. Now I got to try and fix it for you. And you're showing text messages on one phone, and you got an old phone, and emails in 2 systems, and I'm trying to put together a contract like it's magic.
Yep.
Good luck. But you're right. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of tools that small business owners should use, and they don't.
But they weren't interested as a rule. As a group, they were not interested in the product that I had created. So what we were getting was a lot of folks who were using this tool to do their texts, right? So they wanted to automate out a couple thousand texts. And I tell everyone, however much fraud you think is on the internet, there's more.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
how much fraud is out there on the internet. Yeah. So we launched as an open source thing. And Mitch, if I'm going off base, or if you want me to talk about something else, just stop me.
No, I like to hear about it. I want to hear about the AI stuff.
So when I launched, we thought we found product market fit. We got all excited. We had some people signing up, and then more, and then more, and then all of a sudden we're getting a couple thousand a day. And what I'd done was we were offering 10 free text messages.
Okay.
And someone had just...
So the texts were really going through your system.
Yeah, and our payment model was a usage model. Right. So you're going to pay for the phones, you're going to pay for the texts, you're going to pay for the emails.
Got it.
With the idea being that if you're running a business, you're going to need phones and you're going to need email and you're going to need text, and then it would scale with them. That was the initial idea. So anyway, we had these people doing this thing, and all of a sudden we're getting thousands of people a day who are signing up. We're saying this is great, but none of them are buying credits.
Right. It was after the 10 text messages.
They're after the 10 text messages. So they just created a bot to get the 10 free text messages that they could send. And then we weren't able to track it. And so we had to shut that whole thing down.
They created a bot that would go in and do it, like basically steal 10 text messages that they could use?
Yes. Thousands of times.
Yeah, thousands of times. Right.
Thousands of times. So, then it became, tens of thousands, right?
Right.
So anyway, they were using that to steal the text messages.
Okay.
And then we said, okay, we're going to put a stop to that. So we shut that down. And they said, wait a minute, let's see how good these guys have programmed this. And then they started looking for vulnerabilities.
Yeah, hacking.
And they found them. right? So I had to pull all of our API keys, right? I had to pull our API keys to Stripe. I had to pull our API keys to our telecom partners, right? And we basically had to shut down for almost a month to harden up the system, find any vulnerabilities that were out there. I hired a guy who was CISO, who was a keynote over at RSA.
Yeah.
And
so for people listening, and correct me if I'm wrong, what an API is a little program that takes your software and communicates with their system to pull the data or push the data or whatever, right? That's basically what. Yeah.
Let's make it easy. Have you guys ever used a phone, right, where you call someone? You have to punch in a code, and then it calls them, and then you guys can communicate back and forth. That's an API, except it's two computers talking, like a fax machine. How a fax machine would work. It's, I mean, it's
because we're not all on the same system, not all with the same phone company, right? I got it. Okay,
that's good. So we had to pull the API keys, and they give you a key just like they give you a key to your house, or they give you a phone number. So we had to trash our keys, just like
all hacked.
Well, once they get in, you don't know what they get access to, right? So anyway, we'd do that, harden everything up, relaunch again a few weeks later, and then we started getting all the fraud that people were trying to do. Everyone was trying to use it for scams, right? To say I'm Amazon, I'm the post office, I'm this, I'm that. So we had to say, okay, we got to block all these accounts. All these people are trying to use it for fraudulent purposes. Right. And I don't want people using our software to steal money from someone's grandmother. Right.
Yeah, that would be bad.
It's not why I built this. I built this to help small businesses, not to encourage theft. Right.
Yeah. It's certainly big PR, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So we were able to, shut these guys down. As soon as they'd come in, we'd have someone shut down. And then they would come in with a different email every time. Right. Yeah, and then we said, okay. So the email isn't a good unique identifier. And then, if they have a credit card and they've used that before, we'll block the credit card. But then they were buying stolen credit cards on the dark net, right? So we kept seeing guys, and it was always be like, so Joe Smith from Topeka, Kansas came in and bought credits last night.
With a fake credit card. So you were getting purchases, but they were fake, fraudulent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and thousands of dollars, a week.
Right.
And, it'd be like Joe Smith from Topeka, Kansas, bought these things at 2 a.m. and his IP address was from the Gaza Strip. It was always from Gaza for some reason.
Really? A lot of them were for Gaza?
My God. Like 80%. Like more from Gaza than Pakistan, India, and Africa combined.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So much Gaza.
Huh. Wow.
And then we would block the card, and then they would show up with a new card. So I mean, eventually
the reason that they wanted your system was they were using that as a way to do other fraudulent activities, right?
Absolutely.
Traced. Right.
They were trying to use it as a way that they could do fraud. So finally, we just said you have to get verified before you can send out more than 50 messages. And it was the only thing that stopped the fraud from coming in. And then the only way we were able to block most of the credit cards, and I'm actually a little hesitant about even saying this, but our business model has changed so much it doesn't even matter, is that anyone that was more than 100 miles away from where their credit card was, for some companies that might not work, right? If I was a travel company, maybe that wouldn't work. But for us, like you weren't on vacation in, Nigeria and just decided you were going to buy business credits.
So you're supposed to be in New Jersey and you're buying these credits from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's not Mitch.
No, anyone more than 100 miles away, we would end up blocking because it was fraud, like 99.9. I don't know if it was ever not fraud. Like maybe once or twice.
Yeah, so this is an interesting conversation. So if you and I went out, we started some company, some technology company, we're offering some service. If we didn't have the guardrails up or the protections, whatever, people are just going to, from nowhere, they're like ants. They want to take advantage of whatever they can, right? They're looking for ways to rip other people off. They're going to find systems to do it. You're one of them.
It was unbelievable. I mean, it was everyone. It was 99% of my early users were trying to use it for fraud. Yeah. Like it was just everyone.
No real users. You just had criminals.
I had criminals. from the Middle East and from all over the world trying to use it. And then, like, we had to block the guys from Russia who were trying to use it, and the guys from Belarus, and I mean, it was just so crazy. we kept turning off countries, like we're not accepting anyone from this country. And then there was some scam that they would do. We said, okay, you got to verify your phone.
Okay.
Right? Sounds like a good idea, right?
How would you verify your phone in those
You have to punch in your phone, like you put in your phone number and it sends you a code.
Oh, like it's
right?
Like we get the authentication.
Yeah,
You have a 6-digit code, right?
the 2FA.
Now they clone your phone, right?
No. So you'll like this.
Oh, great.
So we put this in, and our guys forget to put a limit on how many attempts you can get. And apparently there's this phone scam in these other countries where they will, if you call this phone company, they'll split the minutes with the person. So they'll charge like $1 a minute or 50 cents a minute.
Right.
And they'll have guys go out and try to find phone systems they can crack to send traffic in. So what we ended up getting was 60,000 verifications from, Belarus in 3 hours.
And what did that tell you?
It told us that they stole about $10,000 from me.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
So just, maybe I'm just dumb, but these are all like little mistakes with trying to run a tech company. That
you said it's kind of like the ins and outs of running a tech company. This is the shit you got to deal with, and you got to build a system.
It happened in 3 hours. It did it in 3 hours. If they'd gone a little slower, we might not have noticed. But
right. Well, they're banging you, and then they're going somewhere else.
That's it. They're just looking for someone who forgot to put a limiter on there.
Right.
And they'll run it until it stops working.
It stops. Right, exactly. So
and then if you don't protect against it, they'll do it again the next day.
Yeah, this is like cybercrime, world. Like me as an individual, even as a lawyer, but as a general Joe on the street, I don't know any of this stuff. I don't answer like weird text messages I get. Hi, how are you? I don't even block. But if I get all these things, I can imagine that if you have a system that could be used for these types of things, it's like, they just come out of nowhere.
So we got a crash course in this. We got a crash course in like, hey, you have to protect against all of these things. And make sure that people aren't doing bad things on your site. So, a lot of them say, hey, we want full encryption and full privacy. And you're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. It's in our terms and conditions. We can look at messages because there's so many people trying to use this, I think we had one guy come in, we saw this message and we're like, Jesus, some guy sent out 1,000 messages like, pay me $2,000 or I'm going to murder your family.
You're kidding.
No. Like blocked off the site, blocked everything.
Yeah.
Right. But we're like, we can't let these messages get out. I think that was the one where I said, we got to verify everyone. Like, that got out the door.
System that like flags the word murder if it's going out.
Then we can buy. Yeah. But then you try to do that. So we did that actually for all the swear words, like on text messages now. For opt-out system, because again, we want to be TCPA compliant. We're doing everything we can to be TCPA compliant.
Right. What is TCPA?
The Telephone Consumer Protection Act.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
So, interesting area of law, and I can get into that a little bit. I'm not an expert in it. I'm not a lawyer, but we did hire the lawyer who went to testify in front of the FCC and FTC for. How a lot of this stuff works.
Yeah. No. Because I hear it in criminal cases and stuff where they talk about when it pings towers and where you are and how the system works, and it's like, doesn't really work that way. And like a lot of this stuff, the general public just doesn't understand all this technology. But it's interesting to think about what goes on behind the scenes as a layperson. Like all the stuff that we use, I know we're getting a little bit off the topic, but all the stuff we use, my smartwatch, the car, it's all communicating all around the world, and it's just data everywhere. You just like can scoop it out and take what you want. So
the advice I'd give to everyone is make sure you have 2FA set up on everything, right?
That's two-factor
authentication, right? So
when they send you a text with a message, or
you want to get an authenticator app on your phone, right? Like you can download it. The Google one is fine, right? Microsoft has one. They all have one. Apple has one, right? So you want to get an authenticator app, and you want to make sure that you're using that on your bank account, right?
Yeah.
You want to Get a PIN on your cell phone as well. If you guys don't have a PIN on your cell phone.
What do you mean, to lock it? Like a screen lock?
So you want to hear
As
a story that happens?
I see attorneys all the time. We go to ethics things, right? And they're like, oh, well, you need to have a password on your phone, and whatever. I use a finger.
No, not the one on your phone. The one with your phone company. So every once in a while, you'll hear one of these stories. You'll wake up, you'll go to use your phone. Your phone's not working. Say, I got to get to work. I'll make a call when I get there. You do your meetings, you get free around lunch, call the phone company. Yeah, there's something wrong with my phone, right? And they say, oh, well, you ordered a new SIM card.
Uh-oh.
So, well, no, I didn't. And now by the time you've gotten into your phone,
they got it all. Right?
They have checked Bank of America and Chase and Wells Fargo and, Citibank. They found where your bank accounts are. They have now hacked into your bank accounts, and all your money is gone.
Now, how did they do that?
Because you didn't have a protection set up on your phone. You didn't have a PIN on your, when you call with the phone company.
So when I call in and they ask me for my 6-digit number, that's my PIN.
Yeah, so you want to have a PIN that no one else knows with that phone company. Because if they get their hands on your phone, now they can break into basically any bank account that you have. So if you're banking with any of the major banks, which most of America does, right? I think 10% of America's Chase.
Right.
I mean, but most people are at the big major banks. Now they can hack into everything that you have, and that's not ideal.
So, but can they do that with like these text messages? Like if I answered one of these text messages that I didn't know what it was, opt in, opt out, whatever, can they use that to get into your phone? Is it that easy?
Not like that. It's if they, and again, I'm not like the real expert on this, but you want that PIN. That's what I know. You want that PIN. You want that 2FA. Everyone thinks 2FA, it's a pain in the ass. Why am I going to set this up? Yeah, get it set up. Right? Because you don't want to be the case where, you found out that you had a couple $100,000 in the bank and then you walk in and your entire life savings, everything you've gone to do is gone. You can't make payroll that afternoon.
Here, look, I'm getting a telemarketing call right now. Very nice.
So,
all right. So let's get back to, because I told you this about you, and then we started having this interesting conversation about your system and Bigly and what it does and so forth. But why don't we do this? I got to play a couple of commercials for people. Let's play me some money.
Go ahead.
And then we'll come back and talk about the whole process and
how
it helps people. All right. Okay. I'm going to put you on mute there.
Here's a word from our sponsors.
Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency.
Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show.
And we are back. Okay. So, Tom, we were talking. So let's get back on the track, because you and I can go down a rabbit hole about technology for a long time, because I find that stuff frightening, but very interesting. And let's talk about the company that you've been building, about Bigly Sales. And you said why you were doing it, right? But how it works. And I'd like to know specifically, because I know you struggled with a really small business owner at the beginning. Do you have clients now that are small business owners, or they're mostly larger organizations?
Mostly larger.
Okay.
So what ended up happening is, give me 1 second.
It's okay. Live show. I don't care if the dogs bark. That's what
yeah, the dog's going nuts in the background.
Right.
Anyway, we would see a bunch of people using our software. So we had all these things built out, email tools, texting tools, right? And we were figuring that small businesses were going to use them all in conjunction together to make their, make their lives easier, right? And have everything in one place. What people would do is they'd come in just to use the email. I just need something for email. I need to get out, 50,000 emails a month to all my subscribers. And, they would just come and use one of our email tools, or they would just want to use the texting tools. And what we would see is a lot of these guys would send these things out in mass. So they send out 10,000 text messages, and then they start getting responses in. And some of them they get back to the next day. Some of them they get back to the next week. And that's not how text works, right? If I send you a text and you don't get back to me for a week,
right?
Especially if it's for some business thing that I'm talking about,
text your attorney. You expect him sitting there by the phone waiting to text you.
They don't want to hear from you a week later, right?
Right.
So that's just not acceptable, right? So we saw this was happening, and then a lot of guys would say, well, because they just can't sit there all day and deal with this, I'm going to give this to a VA, right? So they'd give it to someone in the Philippines or in Pakistan or in India, and those people would be sending messages, and they'd be sending things in broken English,
Of course.
And it would be
but those are the responses. So you have the mass marketing up front, mass mailing.
Oh, they would even pass that off to them too, right? They would pass that off to them,
that's
right?
Easy,
so
probably, unless you write it.
So none of it was, so you'd have people sending broken messages, and you'd have people not responding for a week. And I'm looking at all these issues that people are having. I'm saying, we got to, to make this more effective for people, they got to be using these tools right. And then AI came out of the blue, like a bolt of lightning. ChatGPT came out and was all of a sudden wildly useful. And it was an aha moment. It was, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the solution. This solves all of the issues I'm seeing with the software at once. And we immediately pivoted, and we became an AI company. So,
no, but isn't a lot of the CRMs, like you hear at the beginning, I have AWeber that does my mailing, right? They're basically, I guess they're a CRM, right? They're like MailChimp or any of these others. So if somebody gets, there's little AI pieces in there. If somebody gets added to my mailing list, they automatically start getting emails for a period of time.
Yep.
And I could build that up to do almost anything I want. So isn't there a lot of that out there already, or not when you got started?
There's a lot of that, what you're talking about, but not to take someone through the funnel and not to respond to them.
Okay.
Right. So what we built out is tools to actually do communications, and push someone to a
really
specific,
walk them through the sales process.
To answer their questions, be able to answer any questions that they may have, be able to respond instantly, 24/7, 365 in any language, to be able to push them into a meeting, to be able to qualify that person, right? So if you're only doing cases that are going to be, over 100 hours of work for a new client that you're going to bring on board, and again, I'm just making stuff up, whatever someone's sales criteria may be, that we can ask the qualifying questions on the front end. You can figure out if they're a good fit for you. If they're not a good fit for you, you can send them somewhere else. You can send them to the associate. You can, send them to another law firm. You can, you can do whatever you want with it. So we set it up to be able to have a landing page, to be able to really even start with the advertising, right? Start with ads to get people in the door.
Right.
Have them come to a landing page, be able to track everyone who hit that landing page, right? We have identity management software on there where we basically know everyone who showed up. And then, put them into a funnel, right? Canned spam, you can email anyone basically, as long as you're not being deceptive. And you're, if you have a viable address on there and you're not being deceptive, you can email them. They may be changing those rules at some point here in the near future.
Yeah.
But that's the way it stands today. You're allowed to do one text or one phone call under TCPA. A lot of people violate that rule, but that's what the letter of the law says. You can contact someone once a year.
That's what it says? Well, they definitely violate the rule.
Well, unless, and I can get into this a little bit more as well, but if you have, and then I'll go through what we do first, and I'll talk about the TCPA. We'll have them come to that landing page. We capture their data. If they fill out the form, we capture a snippet of them actually filling out that form, right? And then we save that for 5 years. So we can be compliant with the TCPA. We can show that we've done this to the letter of the law.
Okay.
We have that sitting on any Facebook or TikTok ads that we're running. We have that sitting on any landing pages that we're doing. And then it goes into our system. The AI reaches out to them and starts communicating them, primarily via SMS, because texts are just wildly effective. 95% of them are seen within 15 minutes. As opposed to email.
The most effective way to.
Yeah, wildly effective.
Wow.
We have it.
And now you can see pictures and stuff. It's not just words anymore. So.
Yeah, but I mean, most of it's the words, right? So they fill a form out, and within a minute, they get a text.
Right.
And it's like, hey, I'm your sales rep. We're here to help, right? What's your availability for a call? We can either push them to a call when the call center is open, tell them to call right now. We can schedule them for an appointment. And what we're working on, which will be live in the next month or so, is actually having the AI act as the call center to be able to, an AI, I can clone your voice, right? Or my voice.
I don't have to be on the call. The AI.
No one has to be on the call. That the AI, we can tell the AI what it needs to figure out. It could be an intake form for a hospital, right? It could be an appointment form for someone scheduling for a roofing appointment or for a kitchen remodel or for, any sort of service provider that you can think of, that you don't actually need a person to do that. It'll be able to schedule that person in, qualify that person, make sure they're a good fit, and handle the entire call. Do that for insurance.
So right now, your system takes people, brings them in to a landing page, right?
Yep.
And qualifies them to the point where they're talking to somebody who wants to close the deal.
And schedules them automatically into the appointment and sends them reminders so they show up. But what's coming next is we're going to actually do that via the phone as well, that we're going to combine the SMS with the live calls with an AI agent who sounds like you or I.
Yeah, like Google Assistant, right? That can call. Same type of technology, isn't it? Can I tell Google Assistant, like, call a restaurant and make me a reservation, and they call and it sounds like a person?
Is Google Assistant doing that right now?
I think so. Or maybe they demonstrated it at one point. I don't know if it's doing it now. But
yeah, I mean, the demo and actually doing it are two
stuff. Yeah.
I mean, but this is coming. The tech is there.
Yeah,
the tech is there. It's just building it to do the specific task.
Right.
If Google Assistant's doing that, I'd love to see it. Because, that's pretty fantastic. I can tell you, Five Guys Burger has an AI that they're using for their ordering system, which is about as good as one I've seen. And Apple has one that's live right now as well.
So you're telling me when I order Five Guys, I'm dealing with nobody has to talk to me in the store? It's an AI system?
It's an AI system when you order Five Guys, which is fantastic burgers, by the way. Fantastic burgers and AI.
Although I was out west and we got In-N-Out burgers. Have you been out west?
I've never been to In-N-Out burgers. I've been out west plenty of times, but I've never been to In-N-Out
burgers. You would think that these burgers have like the cure for cancer built. I've never seen so many people. And this was in like the middle of Oregon. We were in Nowheresville driving back to Portland. It was like 2.5 hours out of Portland. It was the only one in Oregon. They mostly in California. There were like people there were like it was a pilgrimage that there was nowhere to sit in this restaurant. It was a fairly large restaurant, tables everywhere. People are waiting for takeout. They're in lines outside. you'd think it was the golden child of food. It was nuts. I've never seen anything, and they were good, but don't wait in a Five Guys like that.
Yeah, I've heard that about In-N-Out Burger. I heard people love them.
Yeah, they love them. I don't know. It was good, but
I've never had one. I can't tell you.
It's a crazy experience, but yeah. So I guess we're going to start to see more of that stuff. But so this is
the year. It's going to be everywhere.
This is the pivot.
Yeah,
the inflection point.
I mean, the APIs for ChatGPT and for Claude really just came out in the second half of 2023. And, ChatGPT is a useful tool without it, but that's how you can build it into every other piece of software that's out there.
Right, because now your software can go and use ChatGPT without you using it.
That's right. And they're making curated databases for everything. So there's going to be curated databases for medicine. There's going to be curated databases for law. So it's just not making up a case. And you're going to say, look, basically don't hallucinate. Don't make up anything. If you don't know the answer, don't, say you don't know the answer. Don't write anything or say you can't find anything. Don't make something up. And they'll have every case that has ever happened in the United States.
No, that's what happened with those guys who used ChatGPT to write a brief, and all the cases were made up, and now they got suspended.
Yeah, because it'll happen. If it doesn't have something, it'll just make it up, right? So it'll make up something that looks like a case.
Right.
It knows what a case looks like. That's how it works. So, I mean, people think the AI is taking over. It doesn't think. It doesn't. It's autocomplete. And if you ask it to write a love story, it's seen every love story ever written. Right. And then it says, okay, well, this is kind of the format of most love stories, Right.
You said you want to do like Shakespeare, so this is the way Shakespeare writes in its style.
Yeah, that's it. That's how it works. It's autocomplete. And why it's happening now is you finally have enough computing power to do this. That's why it happened today and not 20 years from now.
Right, of course, in the internet,
enough tensors,
the infrastructure. Right, exactly. So do you see that smaller organizations are going to be able to have an automated sales process? They don't need salespeople anymore, as you.
Yeah, where you need a lot less salespeople. So again, for us, we're not really targeting the onesie twosie places.
No,
we're targeting someone who has 10,000 leads coming in, and they need to contact all 10,000 leads, right? We're talking to a lot of people that have hundreds of sales reps.
Of course. People call me, you want to talk to me. You don't want to talk to some intake person. You're like, why the hell am I not talking to Mitch? But if you're in a large organization, you got 100 salespeople, you're selling, I don't know, chips or little whatever. Yeah, you want to be taking those orders and not paying for it. This is like what was like when the phone switching systems became automatic. All those people lost their jobs.
Yeah, this is it. These jobs are going away. Like the SDR job is going away. The appointment setter job is going away. That's going to happen over the next couple of years as everyone starts putting in this tech. And it's going to happen really fast. And the reason it's going to happen really fast is, one, it's not that hard to implement. We're making it easy to implement. Mm-hmm. And and we're not the only guys working on this problem. I know there's a dozen other companies working on this. But it's going to be pretty easy to implement most of these AI solutions that you can set these up in a couple of weeks. It's not 6, 12, 2 years of work, right? It's, a few weeks to get this thing live. And then, we're talking to companies like, you're going to put this in, they're going to save $5-10 million.
And they're going to scale too, right? Because their businesses,
they're going to chop $5 million.
Go, right?
$5-10 million of cost out the window for something that is cheaper, faster, and better.
Right. So they're going to increase their closing ratio. They're going to increase the number of appointments they're getting to be able to convert those leads, and they have to pay less people to do it.
Yeah, and that's what everyone sees. That as soon as they start putting the AI on these things, they start closing at a higher rate because most places weren't actually capturing people 24/7 within a minute.
Right.
Someone fills out a form at 2 a.m., right? They're coming back from work. They're working a night shift. They come back. It's 2, 3 in the morning. They fill out a form as they're sitting on the john, and and then they go to bed, and they call them back the next day when the guy's working or when the guy's sleeping or when they don't catch them.
I was awake, and he's like, I don't want that. But before he was asleep, he was going to buy it.
Absolutely. And there's a drop off of about 90 to 95% within the first hour.
So if the guy doesn't buy within an hour off a website or whatever, he's gone most of the time.
Most of the time. For most businesses, most of the time, that was your window. If it's something urgent, think about this. You're calling, you got a leak in your toilet and water's running all over the floor. First plumber doesn't pick up the phone. Are you going to be waiting for an hour to see if he calls you back? First, you got water leaking from the roof, right? Are you going to call that guy back? You're calling lawyers. I'm calling lawyers. I'm calling lawyer 1, lawyer 2, lawyer 3, lawyer 4, lawyer 5. I start talking to one guy.
People, and I didn't call them back within an hour or two. They found another lawyer. I'm
absolutely, but that's
not
everyone.
A day. I know. It's crazy.
An hour. It's an hour. Yeah, so the AI picks it up automatically. Doesn't matter if you're in court that day. It doesn't matter if you're at the spa or you're playing golf with some clients or whatever. The AI responds automatically, sets it up, it books it on your calendar, or you see it that night and you call the guy back. But it takes care of it for you. And the same thing with the customer support, right? Have you called customer support at some of these big companies? Like, have you ever called a Comcast or an AT&T?
Sure. I call T-Mobile all the time.
Now, maybe T-Mobile's different, but
T-Mobile's pretty good. They answer themselves. I mean, everything's automated until somebody gets on the line.
Yeah.
So, they'll
I have
say,
Comcast cable here.
You have Comcast?
Yeah. I spent an hour and a half on the phone with them the other day trying to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, literally an hour and a half.
France. My daughter's overseas. First, I waited on hold for 40 minutes. Then I got people on the phone. It was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. So I was there an hour and a half. It still didn't get done. Right. And in America, that is kind of the standard. When you have great service at one of these places, it's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
So the AI can provide great service every time. You can give it perfect information. You're not going to have a guy lying to you. You're not going to have a guy who doesn't understand it. And the thing AI is best at is all the tech stuff, right? If you're having a problem on your computer, go in ChatGPT, go in Claude, go in any of these, and punch in, hey, I'm having trouble doing this. How do I do it?
And it'll tell you.
It'll tell you exactly. I'm having trouble doing something on Slack. How do I do this? I'm having some trouble in Microsoft Office. I'm having trouble. There's so much stuff written on it.
Yeah, because there's so much data. Right.
It knows exactly how to do it.
Right.
And it does it in seconds. If you want to program something, it knows how to do it. It gives you a bad response. You take it. I always have ChatGPT proofread itself.
It can do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does a great job. That's what it does best. Right. So it makes a mistake and it says, oh, I made this mistake. How do I do it? So you'll give it something and then you'll have it read it again and say, hey, how can I make this better? And it says, well, here's how we can make this better. Boop, 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 boop.
God, I didn't know that. I do know that the quality of the question and, if you're really specific about what you're looking for, these AI bots are better and better.
Yeah. If you're coding something, so I'm not an engineer by trade, but I was trying to play around with something the other day. And I said, okay, ChatGPT, how do I do this? And it had me, downloading Python libraries on my computer. And
really?
Yeah. And I got this thing up and functioning. It took a couple hours.
Right.
But it took a couple hours. I had to download about 10 different pieces of software on my computer. I had to download different libraries. I had to, download Kubernetes, do this. I mean, and finally I got this thing running, but I wouldn't have been able to do it in 10 years without ChatGPT helping me out.
Right.
So
crazy.
Any of this technical stuff, it's amazing at. It can take the technical documentation, show you exactly how to do it. So,
and it's going to get easier and easier for the average user.
Oh, yeah. But for technical support somewhere, they can put this on their website. They can put in all their technical documentation. And Google just came out with one the other day that holds a stunning amount of data. It holds thousands of pages of data in its working memory. And I think they just released it yesterday. They announced it yesterday. No, a new their newest version of their ChatGPT competitor.
Oh, got it. Yeah, it's called Gemini.
Gemini 1.5.
Right. It was called something else before that. Bard.
Yeah, they changed. Right? I mean, they changed the name every couple of days here, so it's hard for me to keep up with it. But
that's your goal with the company, right? Is to build a system that almost eliminates salespeople.
Yeah, that eliminates all the stuff that
gets in the way.
All the level 1 support, all the SDRs. Now, you're not going to replace the guys going for drinks at, the
You
Bellagio.
still need that kind of stuff, right? Nobody's going to, you want to wine and dine the president in order to close the deal. But the guys that are just needling at the system, right? You could just deal with them easily.
They're all going to be replaced. And it's going to happen super fast. I mean, a couple of years.
It's going to happen in my world too, right? There's a lot of things that people can answer.
Why do you need a paralegal?
I don't have a paralegal.
I mean, but why does anyone need a paralegal?
Right. No offense to the paralegals. I agree with you. I don't even have, I shouldn't say this on the mic, Thomas, I don't even have subscriptions to like LexisNexis or Westlaw anymore. Because first, I don't litigate. And second of all, I can find the case law on the web. I don't need to pay them to do it. It's out there.
Yeah, but Westlaw and LexisNexis are going to have ChatGPT built in, or the Gemini, or
write the briefs for you. Yep, absolutely.
It's going to write the brief for you. And your job is going to be to proofread it.
Right, and my job is going to be, I'm not going to be able to charge $600 an hour to do the work that I do because I won't, because there'll be other people that'll be able to do the work that I do because they don't need my skill set. It's going to, you know what I mean? It's going to
You're going to need way less. You're going to need less lawyers. You're going to need less accountants. And anything that you do on a computer, it's going to replace most of those workers. So most of that, anything you do on a spreadsheet, I have to gather this data from all these different places. So you go to one of these big investment banks or any bank. You say you have these guys putting all these things together on spreadsheets and gathering data and doing research.
They're going to be gone.
Gone. Right.
Gone. Yeah.
I mean, but any task
the more
where you're moving,
you have, the more specialized you are, the more in trouble I think you are, because I think we don't need them anymore.
I think the highest echelon is going to be great, right? You're still going to need that's going to be the safest. You're going to need the guys at the top, right? But do you need the junior associate to do your grunt work anymore? Do you need that paralegal?
And you get the grunts and you can get the computer to do it. You don't need the skills anymore.
And the computer's going to do a better job than that.
Right. That's true. The computer's going to do a better job. It's ironic. So Thomas, how can people interact with you, learn about Bigly Sales, see what you're doing on the AI side?
Yeah, I mean, so go to biglysales.com. You can find me there.
We'll the show notes.
Yeah, and
you on LinkedIn?
We'd love to help out. If you're a business and you're looking to streamline your sales organization, we would love to help out. If you're looking to streamline customer support, anything that is interacting with clients, especially at a slightly lower level, AI will be a massive benefit. It will do it faster, better, and cheaper with perfect information.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Thomas, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me. Again, apologize for my lateness. And
I apologize for the dog.
Yeah, dog's fine. I got dogs too. So, let's stay in touch. The world's moving very fast, so I'm anxious to see what happens in the future.
I appreciate it, Mitch. Thank you so much.
All right. Hang on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhakerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhaker and produced by Beinhaker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhakerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.